Welcome back to Inspiring Conversations with Amazing Leaders. This is I'm Marc Pitman. This is my new book that just launched today. Yay! Instead of celebrating by just saying buy my book, although I am saying buy my book, especially if you're on Amazon Live, you can buy it right over there. My wife suggested that I talk to people that I love being around and love being impacted by. And Jessica Sharp is definitely one of them. She's the founder of Sharp Brain Consulting. I saw her talk at a conference here in Greenville, South Carolina, and it was amazing. Not only because it was standing room only, but because you were just telling truth. You were talking about the brain and brain and self-care and what impacts the people you work with. And it was just one of those, in fact, from there, I think, because you've helped me with the book, but one of the exercises I talk about every single time is your self-talk assessment. So, what else should people know about your work?
Yeah. So one, I am so excited and I'm so happy to be here. So other things folks should know, I have a love affair with the brain. I teach about it, I talk about it. And I spend a lot of time working with nonprofits and trying to just help them be better and have better outcomes.
Well, the other thing that Jess did that I hope this is okay that I say it. If it's not, then we can't edit it out, but you can just tell people to disregard it, is that she led with some of the foundations in Greenville a 21-day equity challenge that hundreds of people participated in. And it was wonderfully relentless. It was homework and assignments and reading and watching and journaling every day for 21 days to really get a fuller picture, for me anyway, that helped me as a cis white guy to get a fuller picture of the social inequality that is just really baked into our culture. And so I think that was an amazing experience. You held space for people, you guided them through I don't think it's there. I think it's just a few bad apples to, oh my goodness, there are structures for this. So, and you do that in other communities too, right?
I do, yeah. So I do the challenge, basically any organization can hire me to do it. So what's interesting, so this challenge was started by Food Solutions New England in New England, like years ago at this point. And they did the challenge, and then, other organizations have since adapted it. And so the United Way in Washington County, Michigan, they kind of did some work to the challenge to make some edits to it. And a group of us in Greenville, where we are, got the curriculum, made some edits. And I keep making edits just as I want to, as I feel like it. But yeah, it's, it really helps folks to understand that a lot of our inequities, they are systemic, and in order to fix them, we have to blow up some systems.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved about it too is that it was time released. So there was all of for us in our community in Greenville, South Carolina, because there are 37 Greenvilles in the United States. So we're #that Greenville. We talked every week, and we took that energy, or you helped us take that energy and awareness and kind of what do we do? And gave us just a real curriculum. I have it all guided. I kept it in my Notion app. I have all the different days and all the different assignments and all the different, it's all there, so that I can always be dipping into it and adding to it. So thank you for helping us with that. I want to ask you about leadership and doubt and the brain. So I had some stuff that I'd asked you about, but one of the conversations earlier today, I believe it was with Tony Chapman, was talking about how there are some leaders right now that are this deep into the pandemic are so stressed because they're just, again, understandably trying to just keep their head above water financially. They're just trying to do the stuff and keep the bills paid. Talk about what you've seen chronic stress like that do to a leader's brain.
Oh my gosh. So, I was just talking about this yesterday, which is crazy.
Yes.
So what happens when we are stressed, kind of just in general?
Yeah.
Our cortisol, which is just one of the chemicals essential in our brain, increases. And then once that stressor moves on, it decreases, right? So all good, right? Well,
and you've said that is good. Like it helps us expand our vision, focus a little bit more, so we're not being as distracted. And
exactly right. It helps us basically, what happens is it helps us prime our brains and body to deal with that stressor, right? So again, it's, it's when your palms will get sweaty. What's happening is your amygdala is real active, but again, your vision, your hearing, you are ready to deal with that stressor, right? And that response is created to happen in really a short amount of time, right? So you have this increase, you deal with the stress and the threat, goes back down.
So I think of like a
So
rhino charging me back in the day
right,
when I
exactly.
was, before.
Your brain is gonna it's gonna engage, it's gonna either run at the rhino, which wouldn't be smart, run from the rhino, which maybe you can outrun a rhino, or you probably literally pass out.
Fight, flight, or freeze right there.
Exactly. But what happens is, when we have stress that's consistent, lasts over a long period of time, those increases in things, the cortisol, the, adrenaline, all that, it becomes really, really detrimental for us because none of those things are supposed to be long term, right? So like we can get sick, and what's unfortunate is like we're dealing with COVID. So, we are more susceptible to just regular sick, right? We get more tired. There's all of these sort of physical manifestations, but what's happening in our brain is that our amygdala, which I could, talk a lot about it. All you need to know is it's part of the brain. It is basically in threat response for a real long time. And so that idea of like, you kind of are getting primed to like deal with a threat, run at the rhino, right? Your brain is in that mode and has been for a lot of us for a year. Our brain is supposed to be in that mode for a few minutes, right? Wow. And it's been a year. So y'all, we are tired. We are more likely to be stressed. We are cranky. Whatever your kind of shadow behavior is, whatever the things that you do when you're stressed that you're not proud of, you're seeing a whole lot more of those things because your brain is tired and it is overwhelmed and it is full.
Wouldn't it be great if our shadow behaviors were things like getting goals done and becoming super productive?
Wouldn't that be something, right? Or if our shadow behavior was like engaging in self-care, or if we were like if our default was to say, I'm busy, I'm stressed, I need to take care of myself. But that's not it.
But
wouldn't that be something?
That would be something. Yeah, I was going to say if our shadow behavior were, I need centering prayer.
Exactly, right.
I need some mindfulness time. So what is, if there's a leader, well, I want to talk about leaders and then emerging leaders, because I think there's just those, I see those the most in my work, but leaders right now that are in that, oh my goodness, Jessica, I totally get it. I am living that dream that you're talking about because it's a nightmare. It's a dream, but it's a nightmare. What are some things that they can start doing so that because oftentimes in the conversations we've had up until now, there's a sense of self-care, there's a sense of self-reflection or taking a step back. And that feels risky because it feels irresponsible because I'm the leader. I need to be out. All the things have to be filtered through me. So what are some things that you've seen help leaders in that real stress mode?
Yeah. So in this time, we have to take care of our brains, right? And so some of the ways in which we can do that are, like meditation, right? I won't go too much into it, but essentially meditation literally changes your brain if you do it consistently, right? And when I talk about consistent meditation, what the neuroscience research tells me, it's like, you don't need to be doing it, for long periods of time every day, 3 to 5 minutes a day, every day for 8 weeks. That's it, right? That's all I'm asking for. And if you need to do it more than that, awesome. If you need to do 3 to 5 minutes a day, multiple times a day, that's cool. Engage in guided meditations. There are a slew of apps. There are free versions, paid ones, YouTube videos, all kinds of things, right? But getting that increased oxygen to our brain, taking some time to slow down, right? Huge. It literally can decrease the size of your amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of the brain that's overactive right now, right? So huge, right? So meditation, general mindfulness, right? Which y'all is so dang hard in general, but it's hard right now, which is really the act, the art, the science of being very here in the present moment, right? Not focusing on what we're doing next, focusing on what happened, present moment, which a really good tool to quickly engage in mindfulness is meditation, right?
Okay.
Those two things are good. Another thing is our brain has some real basic needs, right? And so in order to thrive and to move away from a threat response, there's some things that we need,
like
right?
Bourbon, chocolate, red wine. Is that no? Okay. Darn.
I don't know, maybe for some folks. For me, it's like chocolate pretzels. And I found this Corona has this new like low carb beer, and it's yummy. So
Is it awkward to buy during a coronavirus though? The
I
Corona
think we
beer.
should buy it during the
Okay,
coronavirus
good.
because they match. It's on brand, consistent.
That's good. All right. They're saying. All right. So our
So
brain has
everything.
specific needs. You're saying.
One of them that, there are two that I'll kind of talk about quickly. One of them is certainty, right? And we are like quite literally living in like uncertain times. Like, I don't know when I'm going to be meeting in person again. I don't know what's going to happen. Right? So find certainty when you can, y'all. One really cool way is like having a morning routine. And every day when I wake up, I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to have breakfast. I'm going to meditate or pray for 5 minutes, right? At least your brain knows every day is certain, right? Same with the nighttime routine, just having a level of certainty, right? The other thing is relatedness, right? We have a biological need for connection, for interaction, and we are not getting that, right? We're not getting it in the same way. Being in person is not the same as being on Zoom, as we all know, right? So, this one might be a little bit harder for some folks, but if you've got a friend, a family member, or someone that you feel safe and comfortable being in person with, try to be in person every so often, and safe means different things to different people, right? And I'm not here to tell anybody what safe looks like for them, but find somebody who's safe for you and kind of try to spend some time in person with them. And a fun anecdote I'll tell you is I have just like tried my best to lean into all of this, right? And so I am at, I think maybe 11 or 12 masks that I own right now. I get holiday masks. So I've got, Thanksgiving, Christmas one that, I might wear again. Who knows? I might not, but I've just, I got my first vaccine shot. You can actually see it. I've got my vaccine card up
Yay!
here, partly so I remember to take it
Yeah.
next time. But I got a new mask that says I got my vaccine. Really, I probably shouldn't wear it to the second one. But anyway, all that to say, make this fun for you as much as you can. That's just a free bonus tip.
I got some. I got two ties that are coordinated with masks so that they're
See?
yeah. So yeah,
Find joy when you can, y'all, because right now this is hard.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
Yeah,
that
those are
when the pandemic hit, and so this, people that are watching, this is why I went to Jessica and said, "Could you do one of these stress in the brain things for?" So if you go to nonprofitacademy.com, if you Google that and Jessica Sharp, you'll see that we offered that as a way of just helping. And I have to attest to you're right. The centering prayer, I had a practice of that in college because I knew I was an extrovert and I was very people focused and fast paced, and I knew that part of what I needed to grow in was slowing down. And so I took I was part of a program that allowed me to set goals and do that. And so centering prayer was part of it for me. Because of you, I just made it a habit, or no, it's not a habit, I should say, but it's much more of a regular something I go to as much as the exercise that I do. And I have a chair. I was pointing to the chair that I just do centering in, and it was incredible how much more space it gives,
wow.
and how there was just a softness in a freeing way, not in a mushy sort of I'm not sure way, but there was an ability to respond as opposed to react that was just remarkable. So thank you. And I'm still doing
what
that.
you're doing is, you're decreasing activity in your amygdala, increasing activity in your prefrontal cortex, and y'all, that's where we do our best thinking, right? So all that we're doing is when we increase that oxygen to the brain, if you're a visual person like I am, imagine that it's like we're just kind of decluttering a little. We're just moving some stuff over. We're organizing some stuff. We're getting some stuff out of the way so that we can think very clearly, and we just have more control over our thinking and our brain, right? That's all we're doing.
I love that your reality of when you shared it in at the Together SC Summit was that I remember very visually you said, even if you're a single mom at home, close the door to the toilet and get 2 minutes and just and that I just loved
because all of us can find 3 minutes. Even if you are the CEO of, I don't know, Walgreens, the CEO of Walgreens is in my head because there's a new CEO was appointed. Y'all, you can find 3 minutes. And the other thing too is if you have, kids, you got two options. Either close the door and say, I'm putting on a timer, you got 2 minutes, because really all of us can find 2 or 3 minutes, or do it with your kids and sit down and say, all right. And and there are ways to explain this to
Yeah.
young people. We talk about belly breath. I mean, there are ways to do it. So everybody sits for 3 minutes and meditates, and then everybody feels better after. But all of us can find 3 to 5 minutes that every human can. I don't care how busy you are, you can find 3 minutes. I mean, we go to the bathroom all the time. Just take a bathroom and sit and meditate.
There you go. One of the things that was for senior leaders. It seems like that applies to emerging leaders too. How do you work when you're working with leaders that are they don't have senior authority there, but they have responsibility for getting a certain project done? What are some things that they can do to help change the space around them and maybe the organization and make it a safer organization or less stressful?
Yeah. I mean, because this is different, right? If
Yeah.
I'm here, right, I'm in the middle. So there are, a few things that I talk about. So, obviously I talk about the same things related to team, right? Focus on your team, all of that stuff, right? But if possible, there are a few things that I talk about, both kind of focusing on two tiers: your peers, if you're middle management, your peers, and then this idea of managing up, right? So if there are things that, if you learn something cool from Marc's book, which I promise you will, promise maybe, at your next Zoom meeting or your next meeting with a colleague, right? Say, gosh, I read this book and I learned this thing, right? And so you're kind of encouraging them to maybe do something, and you're approaching it in a way that doesn't feel intrusive, right? Because you're not saying, I've noticed that you do XYZ thing and you need to be better. So what you're saying is, I was reading this book and they were talking about this and it was so awesome. And I think we should all try it, right? And then also, as much as possible, trying to manage up, which, I recognize that managing up is really, really, really hard. So when you can, try to do that. But what I really think we, middle managers, can try to do is, again, focusing on your peers and focusing on your team. Because if your peers start to kind of change and evolve, their teams start to change and evolve. And then if everybody on the team has changed and evolved, the leader, if they're a good leader, they're going to evolve. But even if they don't, you end up having a strong enough team here that you're probably kind of okay.
And when you say managing up, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so for me, it looks like if there are things that my supervisor does, and I'm in a world now where I'm self-employed, but when I was employed by somebody else, there were things that my supervisor was doing that were hindering me from being successful, right? That were creating challenges. When you read Marc's book, he'll talk about Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 8. I need to have autonomy.
Yes,
I do
I
not
just had an 8 on. Nadia Boltweber's an 8 who's just on. That's really I love. Yay, go
yeah,
8s.
I love it. I mean, I do not, please don't try to micromanage or control me, because I'm not going to do well. So if I did have a supervisor who was micromanaging or controlling me, there'd be a few things I'd try. First, I try to just kind of give some feedback and say, and again, you can do it in different ways, right? You can be very kind of blunt about it, or you can be a little nuanced, right? And say, I was reading this book. I learned that this is my personality, and it made me realize that I kind of realized that I get frustrated when I don't have a level of control. So I'd love it if we could try this, right? Where you're giving them the feedback and saying, this is not how I work best. And then give them some concrete thing, right? So say, hey, I'd love to, maybe let's meet weekly or bi-weekly so that you're in the loop, so that way they don't have to hound you, that sort of thing. So identify the problem, try to find a proposed solution that really would also work for them, and then present it in a way that doesn't feel intimidating, right? Because, it would be nice if we could just say what it is all the time, right? I'm an Enneagram 8. I always just want to say what it is. I don't always want to use colorful language, but sometimes you need to, right? So if your boss is real warm and fuzzy, and they don't like to be just told what it is, you got to finesse them a little bit, right? You may not love it, but what's your goal? Do you want to be successful? Then you got to, be strategic about your approach.
That's so good. And that's one of I was just thinking about a team that I get to train started right before the pandemic and we coached through, but it was exactly the same thing where it was helping managers, senior level. I got to train the senior level team and keep in touch with the CEO, who was amazing. And it was fun to be able to to know each of them. Enneagram was a tool that they found great help to them. And so to help them figure out how to take their dialect and speak it in the terms that would kind of be maybe more in line with what the senior leader was, but all of them moving forward for their goals. And adjust. I mean, we all have to flex and adjust. And that's what you're talking about too, was it hard to learn as an Enneagram 8, was it hard to learn to nuance some of your words, or was that something that you grew up knowing?
I think that I don't know if I always knew that I needed to, but I figured out probably pretty early in my leadership journey, which honestly for me, like that leadership journey started at least in college. I knew that because other people were different, I knew I needed to adjust. So I love strength finders as well. Yeah. And one of my top 5 strengths is individualization. So I see people as very like individual, and I see them as like unique. And so because I see people that way, it means that I know that everything doesn't work for everyone. So here's the other thing too about 8 that you know, Mark, but not everybody else does, is that the shadow side of 8 is that we can be very manipulative. I kind of am, but in the best way.
Honest, it is for your best that I'm doing this.
Right. So I say that to say, like, I know that people are different because of individualization. So I'm like, what's my goal? This is what I want. Okay, well, let me figure out how to do this dance because I want to get to my goal. So I'm my goal orientation means that I have to be nimble. So I'm okay with it.
That is really good. That's great. And that shows, maturity on your part too, to realize it's not everybody, one size doesn't fit all. That's really cool.
Right.
What one thing I did ask you to share, because I share it in the book and I share it in most of my talks. Anybody that hears me talk about quadrant 3 leadership, and I reference you freely and wonderfully because I learned this from you. What was the genesis for the self-talk assessment?
So I'll give you the kind of the commercial for it. So I had this amazing life coach. Her name is Andrea Owen. She's now a dear friend, and I did some work with her, and she utilizes Brene Brown's curriculum, but she also has a lot of her own stuff that she put in. She's kind of changed a lot of it now, and it's mostly her, but she talks a lot about self-talk. She works with a lot of high achieving women. And so she would, talk to me about my self-talk. And y'all, I didn't know that self-talk was a thing until I started working with Andrea. And so, and I can't remember how the kind of what she told me to say or what she told me to do that got me to the point where I was like, I got to write this down. Right. And so, this idea of learning about self-talk and being aware of it, because again, I didn't know that self-talk was really a thing. So then when I realized it, I realized that, like a lot of people, I was very unkind to myself, right? So, what I think is a really cool way to figure this out, and it's in the book. So if you've when you read the book, because I know everybody who's going to read it, you'll read about this, but, writing down what you're saying to yourself. Because when I say it in my head, right, it may not sound as harsh, as intense, right? But when I write it down and I see it on paper, and then I ask myself, which plenty of people have said some version of this next piece, would I say this to my partner, my child, my mom, my dad, somebody I love? And if the answer is no, then you need to not be saying it to yourself, right? But in order to change your self-talk, you have to know what in the world you're saying to yourself, right? And that's the thing that I learned so much from Andrea, is just being aware of that narrative in my head. And so now I'm super aware of it. I'm able to kind of stop it in its tracks if it is kind of shifting into negative. But honestly, I find that now my self-talk is either kind of neutral or it tends to be more positive because I know how important it is. Because that story I tell myself creeps in, deep into my brain, and it kind of impacts the story I believe about myself, and if I'm not on my team, nobody is, right? So I got to be head cheerleader here, because if I'm not, and RuPaul said, I was listening to a podcast this morning with Pete Buttigieg, and Billy Porter, voted RuPaul, and RuPaul said, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect anybody else to?
Can I get an
So,
amen in here?
I mean, really. So, who knew I'd be quoting RuPaul? But here we are.
Here we are. That's right. That was one of our pandemic things. I was introduced to the whole drag race, and so yeah, it's fun when you type things on your phone and you realize that they're a RuPaul. Like,
I know RuPaul's great.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, for me, the
Shantae, you
was,
stay. That's what it was. I was typing Shantae, and it was like you stay is what came up as stuff.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love it. So the genesis was working with a pretty amazing life coach.
That is awesome. I happen to have chosen that as a profession too, because coaching is such a privilege to be able to do. So thank you, Jessica, so much for your impact, not only in helping people think about their self-talk and the work that you do, also with this book, helping make sure it was as accessible to a wider range of people than as wide a range as I was hoping it would be. So I really appreciate that as well. Everybody, I recommend you go to jessicasharp.com, find out more about her, consider her 21-day challenge, listen to her teaching. She teaches the brain and makes it seem like, oh yeah, that's normal. Okay. As opposed to you don't have to be a scientist. You just have to be caring for it. So thanks, Jessica.
Thanks.